Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Autodesk Vault What's the Difference webinar. Basically going to be looking at a comparison of Vault Basic, Vault Workgroup, and Vault Professional. Bit of an explanation of what each of them do and why there is a difference. My name is Carl van Rooyen. I'm an application engineer with Micrographics. So if we have a look at the agenda today, we are going to have a Vault overview, which will look at basically what is Vault, how does it work, and how does it integrate into your current design software if you're using Inventor and AutoCAD, and how does it integrate into your system. We're going to move on from Vault overview into Vault basic features. And after looking at the Vault basic features, we'll see how Vault Workgroup builds up onto that, on top of those basic features, and what are the changes there. And then Vault Professional features, we'll see how Vault Professional adds even more functionality than Workgroup. Then we'll wrap it up with a feature comparison as well as Q&A. So to start off, as we said, Vault overview, we're going to have a look basically at how Vault is rolled out, what it comprises of, and how does it integrate into your current systems. So if we have a look here at the data management, what Vault is, it's basically a data management solution for CAD users and managers. So that would be your designers, anyone using, let's say, Inventor or AutoCAD within a design firm, and it can extend onto other users that need to manage file types within a managed system. Now, Vault itself is a two-part system, two main parts. You have the client. If we refer to the image on the right-hand side there, you have your client. In this case, that image has two clients that connect to a Vault server. So Vault comprises of your client-side software. That's what the everyday user is going to interface with. And then you have the Vault server, which then stores all your data. And in a nutshell, that server is made up of three components. A web server. This basically handles the transmission of data back and forth between the client and the server. It has a database. That database is SQL based, and that stores all of the properties for your data that is put into the file store, which is that third part there. The file store is literally where all of your part files, your assemblies, all of the CAD and non-CAD data that you load into Vault, that file store is where all of that is kept. That's generally the largest portion of the Vault, depending on how much data you put in. I know customers where their file store is reaching 2 terabytes worth of data, if not more. So Vault, as it shows here, it's a server-based system, and that allows you to centralize data within your organization. Everyone who works on Vault will be looking at the same set of data posted on a server. And what happens is that you can access this, or you access this data through a secure standalone application on the client's PC or on the user's PC. So you would open up, let's say, the Vault client, and you would need to log in with a username and password so that Vault knows who is accessing what data. So that's a level of security that is added there as well to protect your intellectual property. All that information on that Vault server is protected by that username and password. To add further on to that, the different editions of Vault, Basic, Workgroup, and Pro, have different levels of security, which we'll cover later on for those users that log in. And Vault itself can handle multiple file types. So you can, or basically any file type, can be added into Vault. Generally, your design files, if you're working with Inventor with Vault, your design files need to be added into Vault through Inventor, and Inventor add-in. So we'll look at the next slide at that. But once you're in Vault, in the Vault client, you can go to the file options and you can actually choose to add a file and then browse to any file on your hard drive or network and load that into Vault. Now, once it's in Vault, that version of that file should be the single truth. That's the file that you go back to. So any file that was on the server, you basically could archive, on your file server. You could archive that and then refer to the one that's in Vault. So that is a basic Vault overview. You have your clients that connect to your server. Your server hosts all of your files and your data. And if we move on to integrations, where is Vault integrated? How do you access Vault? We see here that Vault is integrated directly into Inventor, AutoCAD, and most of AutoCAD's verticals. It's also integrated into Navisworks. We see Revit has a Vault Pro only functionality. So Vault Pro specifically has some settings to help deal with Revit and BOM 360 functionality. And it also integrates into Microsoft Office. Now you'll see the Outlook for Workgroup and Pro. So essentially with Vault Basic, you will have a Excel, let's say Word and Excel add-ins, but not for Office. But if you go for Workgroup and Pro, Outlook. But if you go for Workgroup and Pro, you can then have that add-in in Outlook as well, which means you could basically put emails into Vault and keep track or store important emails and information from Outlook inside of Vault. And what does Vault actually do? Now that we can put information, or we know we can put information in and out of Vault, Vault can take that information and add version control and revision control. You'll see that revision control is edition specific. So basically for Workgroup and Professional, you can control revisions. For Vault Basic, you would have what we call file versioning. And that essentially is every time you check a file out of Vault, which is actually the next point there, when you check a file out of Vault, you're telling Vault that you want to modify that file. So Vault allows you access to check the file out. You're essentially signing it out to yourself to work with, and Vault then knows that designer A has that file and they're working with it. If designer B wants to come along and edit that file, Vault will tell that user, sorry, that file is already checked out. You cannot modify that file. So it helps to prevent users from overwriting data because they are essentially editing files at the same time or out of turn. When designer A is finished with that file and they check that file back into Vault, Vault will record when the file was checked in, and it will also increase or create a new file version. So every time a file is checked in and checked out, you get a new version of that file. This allows you to, at any point, roll back to a previous version in case somewhere along the line you went off the beaten track and went in the wrong direction with the design. You can always roll back to a previous version and then go in the opposite direction with the design and change up the way you designed. So that check-in and check-out of files controls who has access to the file at a specific time for editing, and it also then allows for the file versioning. You'll see there the note about files are locked when checked out. So if I check a file out to myself, no one else has access to editing that file. They could download it and view it, but they would not be able to edit it and make saves and put that back into Vault. Vault also allows for traceability. If you open up a file or if you're looking at a part inside of Vault, you can trace where is that part used. Vault will track which assemblies that part is used in. And you can even look at an assembly and see what files does that assembly use. So we've got the where used, part, which assemblies is that part used in, and it could even be a sub-assembly. How many sub-assemblies or how many assemblies does that sub-assembly get used in? And then the same with users. you pick let's say a top level assembly, it will give you the tree of components used within that assembly. So what we'll do is, there's a quick overview of Vault, what it does, and we'll run a demo now on some of that functionality. So I'm going to just switch over to the Vault client. So what I have here up on the screen right now is my Vault client. This is Vault Professional. So this is the top level. This is the top level Vault edition that you can get. So things would look slightly different, or would look different in Basic. Essentially, here on the bottom left-hand side, we have different work areas. We have different work groups. So basically, home, duplicates dashboard. Some of these would not be available in, let's say, Basic or Workgroup. So if you were looking at Vault Basic, you would essentially have your home option and Project Explorer. So if I click on Project Explorer on the top left-hand side here, we get what looks like a standard Windows Explorer tree that you can browse through. And this essentially is our folder structure inside of Vault. So if I just collapse a couple of these folders down, you can see here that I have some data sets that are loaded in, as well as some customer data that has been tested within Vault. So if I look here at back mono, I can expand out the folder structure in the tree on the left, or what I could do is I can go to the details, or the data grid on the right-hand side. I could also browse through there to find a component. So as I browse through, I can see the different folders that I can go into, as well as the assemblies and parts within Vault. Now, the data panel here works quite nicely for being able to filter out according to specific information. And this is one big thing with Vault, that is, because it has that database in the background, it makes it easy for you to track and search and find data within Vault. Now, if I have a look here just at the data panel itself, I can filter and let it show only assembly files. So I can filter this to show only the assemblies, and then pick an assembly and view or preview information with regards to that assembly down here at the bottom. So here I can see history. We'll see number of versions. I spoke about versions earlier on, and it shows that there are 4 versions. And if I want to, I can go here to the right-hand side and say show all versions. That will then generate a list of the different versions of this main assembly that were changed. We can also look here. We can see that it has a created by column, so we know who created that. And it also has a checked in date and timestamp, so we know when that version was checked in. How long ago was it since the last change on this assembly? So here we can see it was way back, almost 2 years ago, when this file was last changed. We can also go to the Users tab and expand out the browser panel here at the bottom to get a better idea of what does this main assembly use. If we scroll through here, we can see there are a couple of bolted connections. There's a QMO V70 that is actually the wheels, the rims and tires for this vehicle. And there we've got some more Oz Racing. So sorry, those are the tires. The QMOs are, sorry, the other way around. QMOs are the tires, the Oz Racing are the rims. And we can even browse further down into this and have a look at, let's say, the assembly here, MBW1024. I expand that out. It will then show me what is used within inside that assembly. If I want to see what that subassembly is, we can quite easily right-click on that and choose to viewing window, go to folder, and that go to folder will take you to that subassembly. And now, same thing here, I can go to the history and view that subassembly. So that 1024 is basically the bodywork subassembly, and we can see what it uses. Alternatively, you can go to the Where Used. On the Where Used tab, you can expand out and see that this subassembly of the bodywork is used in the main assembly, and that main assembly is and that bodywork is also then used within a drawing and a DWG, so RDW and DWG file. So that bodywork subassembly is used in 3 other files. So it has that file relationship that exists there. We have a change order tab here. This is for Vault Professional. You won't see this in other Vault versions, Basic or Workgroup, but you will have the preview version and the other first three tabs in any of the Vault editions. And the preview version here, the preview tab allows you to preview that data directly inside of Vault. You don't need to download those files and open them inside of Inventor. You can preview this directly inside of Vault. The non-design users, you may have a manager or a salesperson that wants to find and view data in Vault. They're able to go and find that information in Vault and have some simple viewing within Vault. You can even do some simple measurements within here as well. So you have that capability of viewing 3D files within Vault. Okay, so that is the Vault client. Just a quick show on what it can do. There is one more here I would like to show actually, is the find option. So in the top right hand side of this data panel, you can click find, and you can search for any value within any property in, let's say, an Inventor part file. So if I wanted to look at, I wanted to do a search and see if there are any files that are checked out by the administrator, I can do a search. Sorry, I can add that. So I'll add a search term where it says checked out by contains, and I forgot to add that value in there. So checked out by contains, start this again quickly, find, we'll go checked out by contains admin, add that as a search term, and then we will run a search. And we'll see if there's anything checked out by admin, contains by admin. So this is showing that there's nothing at the moment checked out by admin. You could do searches according to part number, description, materials. There are various properties that are listed here that you can search by. If you want, you can just do a quick search as well. So if I go here to top level folder, I can search that top level folder, and I can type in fuel and see if anything comes back with fuel. And there's a fuel filler neck. If I go to this one over here, that is the fuel tank. And the reason that that returned a result, even though that the name has not got fuel in it, will probably be because the description maybe had the word fuel in it. So I'm going to add description as a field in the data panel. So let's add that above revision. There it is. Fuel tank enclosure, fuel tank assembly. So this data panel is also customizable to show various properties related to the data within that panel. So here, when I ran that search for fuel, it found that word fuel in the description property and returned the result. So this is the client, allows you to quite quickly and easily find that data. And even once you've got that data, You can run things like copy design, and that process of copy design would allow you to duplicate your files and assemblies quite quickly and easily for reuse in other projects. That is the client. As far as the Inventor integration goes, you would have a Vault tab inside of Inventor. I see currently I'm not logged into Vault, so I would click login here, and it asks me to log in with my details. So I can put in my username and my password, specify the server and the vault. Those are remembered each time you log in, so you don't have to change it every time. And you hit OK to log into that vault. So now that I'm logged into Vault, I'm able to work and open up files from Vault or check files in and out of Vault. One nice thing is, I'm just going to jump back to the client quickly. In the client, you can create shortcuts, and those shortcuts are also carried through to Inventor. So here I have a shortcut to what is the rolling chassis assembly inside of the Vault client. But if I go to Inventor and I select from the Vault tab, I select Open from Vault, I'll be able to access that shortcut from this location. So I can go here to my my shortcuts. I can see there is the shortcut. It takes me directly to that file. I can then hit open to open up that file. If that file does not exist on my C drive, it's only in Vault, it will go and fetch that file and download it from Vault. It's telling me the files are not checked out to you. Do you want to check them out? I'm going to say no. I just want to view the files. I don't want to edit them, so I won't check them out. That is then going to essentially download those files from the server and put them onto my C drive. So I'm then working locally with that file and making modifications. This is actually a nice time saver for working, or for guys that have slower network connections. Every time you save and those files have to be written over the network to the server, can be a slow process. So by Vault copying those files to your C drive and saving to your C drive every time you make changes and save, that does speed up the process of working, especially if you have a solid state drive. You don't have to, you're not saving massive changes across a potentially slow network to a server. So here in my case, it has opened up that rolling chassis, and we now have it still busy loading. This isn't a small assembly. It's asking me, once again, do I want to check out specific files? I'm going to say no to all. And I now have that assembly open inside of Inventor. Now, I noticed it didn't download any files. So I had opened this previously, and those files already existed on my hard drive. So it found that those files existed on my hard drive, and it didn't download from the server. If the files on my hard drive were out of date, I would be able to check that within the Vault browser here on the left-hand side. So here on the left-hand side, I've split out to view my model browser and Vault browser next to each other. And the Vault browser tells you the status of the files that you have open. So if I have a look here, currently all these files have a white dot next to them. And that basically means that I have the files on my C drive and they're all up to date. There's no changes. What I have is existing in Vault. So that is your Inventor, basics of the Inventor integration. You can open from Vault. You can check the files out now as needed. If I wanted to check out a smaller portion of this assembly, let's say just one of these one of these shocks to make a change to it, I'll be able to open that up, give my Inventor a few seconds here to react. I'll be able to open that up and go to Vault and say, okay, I want to check this out and make a change to it. And when I check it out, it's listing all the components that exist within this assembly. So I can actually check out all of those if I want to, or select only a few to check out. And what I was thinking of doing is just taking this piston and spring seat and making a modification to it. So if I go into that, and I just want to make a modification to literally just that color on that part file, I can then go ahead and check that file out just on its own. So I'm going to check out just that single part, letting me know properties might be out of date. So properties that it has in Vault might be out of date. I'll say, yes, I want to update the properties of the file that I have so that I know that the properties of my file and Vault are synchronized. Now that that file is checked out, I could go ahead and make a modification like the appearance to this. So I'm going to change that one to yellow. Okay, now it's telling me that I need to check out another file to make this edit. So I'm going to say yes to all, check out those related files. There it is, it's yellow now. And so I've made a change to the component in that assembly. The assembly needs to be checked out to update the assembly. And what I'll do now is, after making that change, check everything back in to Vault. I need to first save those changes. And you'll see now those two files that were modified, the assembly and the part that I changed the color, they will be checked back into Vault. We can see on the left-hand side, there's a little green check mark next to each of them in the Vault browser. That lets me know that I have made changes to the local file. And once it's checked back into Vault, you refresh this, those will return back. I see I left, so I checked this in, but I actually left the option on to keep it checked out to me. So I can continue to modify this file, but I have the updated version in Vault. So there's a bit of a work through there, making those changes. If I go and find this file in Vault, so I'm going to say here, go to Vault folder, and that will take me to that file inside of Vault. I can see here that it actually is still marked as checked out to admin. I'm actually logged into Vault as a different user. So I've logged into Inventor as admin, but I've logged into Vault as Carl. So here it's showing me that that file is checked out to someone else. We'll go to history, show all versions. I see the thumbnail wasn't updated. Just check the preview here quickly. Just want to refresh my Vault. I'm working over a VPN connection back to our server at our office for this, so there may be a bit of a delay here. Okay, it's not showing me the preview right now. But yeah, I'd be able to see those changes inside of Vault. We can see it's currently checked out. Maybe I should check this file in. And what I did was I left that on keep files checked out. So I'm going to uncheck that. And this will check it into Vault and make it available for others. Once I'm done with this, I will then move on to the next section. So Let me just refresh that again. And we can see that it was checked in today at 28 minutes past 2. I realize now I changed the color in the assembly and not in the part file. So the color will look different in the assembly, but not the part. So a bit of a mix up on my side there. I should have opened up the part on its own and changed the color. So we won't see a color difference here, but we do see that the version has been jumped up to version 3 because there was picked up a change on that. So that's a bit of an introduction on user interface, the Explorer, integrations with Inventor. Just to show you, in Microsoft Word, there is also integration into Word where you can log in, open up files from Vault. You could check files in and out of Vault with Word, as well as even Office. We can see here there's, okay, I don't have it installed, but with Outlook, you can have the Vault integration in there as well. So a bit of a comparison. If we look at Vault Basic, we then have our entry level, basically it's your entry level free with product manufacturing collection Vault, and that Vault Basic would allow CAD integrations in Inventor, AutoCAD, where it allows you to load files into Vault directly from your design package. Then also allows for any file type, so there's no limit on file type with Vault Basic, but you only get file versioning. So within Vault Basic, you get your file versions, which allows you to track any document changes when were files checked out and checked back in, or basically when files were checked back in with that change. The Vault Basic allows you to find and reuse designs. So you can use the search tools, as I showed in the demo, where you can search and find according to properties. You can also then use copy design tools to copy that assembly and create a new version of that assembly, but it has no link back to the original assembly. The copy design in Vault Basic is different to Vault Workgroup and Pro. It is the older style copy design, and we see it here in the image on the right-hand side where that car seat is being copied. Then from there, you move up to Vault Workgroup. Vault Workgroup basically has all the goodness of Vault Basic plus more. What it does is it adds enhanced user roles and permissions, so that when you grow larger as a company, you need more functionality, you have more users, you are able to work with those users' permissions and roles and what can they do in Vault and what can't they do. You can also set up groups and manage users as part of a group within the organization. Let's say you have junior designers and you have senior designers. You can create two different groups and add permissions and roles differently per group. Junior designers may be able to edit files but not delete files, where senior designers could delete files within Vault. Vault Workgroup also brings in what we call file lifecycles. This allows you to have files go through their different life cycles with regards to where it is in the process. If a file is work in progress, it would be in a work in progress life cycle. That life cycle can control what access is available to that file. So if something is work in progress, you'd be able to read and write to it and make changes to that file. But if that file is then completed and you're happy with the design, you want to submit it to your client, you could move that file into a life cycle where it was waiting for approval. And in that state, no one should be able to make changes to that file, except for maybe top level management or designers who would make changes that are only requested by the client who's reviewing it. If the client is happy and they say, okay, go ahead and manufacture, you'd be able to move that file into a released life cycle, where the life cycle, that file would be locked down and no one can make changes to that file. And if a change is made or needs to be made to that file, it would have to change life cycle from released back to work in progress. And that would trigger the next point, the file revisions. That would then revise that file and bump it from, let's say, a first revision to a second revision. So with your work group, you now get file revisioning, where you can now track how many times that file was released and then edited again to get your various revisions. Think of a machine that goes through revisions of design, and you can then track those revisions of those designs. How many times was it re-released for manufacturing with changes? You can also go back and look at previous revisions if you need to, let's say, supply spares for an older machine. Workgroup also integrates automated PDF creation. So as files move through life cycles, let's say from work in progress to released, the system can automatically create a PDF if it is set up to do so. This requires a job processor, a separate app that will run on a PC, and it will then basically farm out that work of creating the PDF to that job processor. So it offloads that work from, let's say, specifically the designer's PC. Vault Workgroup also gives access for admin users through a separate app, which is a separate license that you can purchase called Vault Office. And this gives essentially administrative access only. It doesn't give access for design work. So you can't check design files out of Vault, modify them and check them back in. They'd basically only be able to get design files to view, but you would be able to do any sort of administrative work inside of Vault using a Vault Office. So this would be a license and an application for, let's say, sales, marketing, management, people that need to access Vault and retrieve information from Vault, but not necessarily, or manage information in Vault, but not necessarily do design work. Vault Workgroup also brings in visual reporting tools inside of Inventor, and this allows you to view information and pull reports and color code designs within Inventor according to that tool. Okay. Then you have Job Processor. I mentioned that earlier with the automated PDF creation. Job Processor is a small app that can run on a dedicated PC or even on a designer's PC to run processes like generating PDFs, generating viewable file formats, where those files can be, or that work can be offloaded to a computer that is not occupied by a designer. So you're using a dedicated resource to do processor-intensive work, and this would run. It could run on a dedicated PC, or could be scheduled to run on the designer's PCs overnight to work on the jobs while the designers are not in the office. Okay. Okay, Vault Workgroup, just having a look at basically everything that I've explained, just in a little bit more detail. It's enhanced users' roles and permissions. You basically have more control over who can edit what files. You get roles such as document consumers, where you're read-only. You can also get document editors, level 1 or 2. My example with the junior designers and senior designers, they could be separated into level 1 for junior, level 2 for senior. Level 1 can't delete files, level 2 can delete files. And you also get roles where you could be called a document manager, where you can manage life cycles within Workgroup. Just a quick look at that Vault life cycles. So a life cycle is that descriptive state for your file. So there we see on the right-hand side, just a visual helper there to show how the life cycles could work. You can have the WIP, or work in progress, push through to review, from review to release, and if you need to go back to work in progress, there's a revision bump as it goes from release back to work in progress. There is also an option for release for quick change. So it may be just a small change to a note on a drawing that doesn't require a revision bump. You could do a quick change as well. You'll see there between release and quick change does not affect the revision. These revisions, they can also be manually bumped, or they can be bumped depending on the life cycle. So you can have it automatically revisioned when going from release back to work in progress, or you can manually bump a revision up to a required level. Just a quick look here, there's the automated PDF creation. It can be manual, or when you request a change in life cycle. I spoke about Vault Office. On the right-hand side, that image there shows the visual reporting tools in Inventor. So there's a report there that was pulled up, and that shows the various states. You'll see that there's approved, in process, pending, and complete. So it's done a study of those properties, and it's coloring the parts according to those properties. So we can see that the propeller is still in process in design. There's still, and all the blue there would be approved. So you can actually get reporting tools directly inside of Inventor. Okay, job processor, I spoke about that already. Create PDFs, update visualization files, and there are other features that job processor can do. Okay, so just a quick demo here on in Vault. What we can do is we can take a drawing. So here I've got an assembly drawing, and just need to make sure my job processor is running. So I'll launch job processor on my PC. So there we have it running, and I can take a file, and in this case I'm going to manually create or manually kick off that process to create a PDF for that file. So I'll then create PDF, and that PDF will be, that create task will be sent to the job processor. We can see here that it's going to go ahead and process another job that it shouldn't. Okay, so it will process that job, and it will return that PDF into Vault and attach that PDF essentially to a drawing. So here I've got one that I've baked previously. So we can see here that we have the drawing and a PDF. And if we go to the drawings users options, we can see that there's an attachment to that drawing, and that drawing has the PDF attached to it. What this means is that when we look at Vault Professional, we can make items out of this drawing, and that file, that drawing file and the PDF will be attached to the item. So that would be the PDF creation. Let me just check back in on job processor. There we go, Autodesk Vault create, so it's creating that PDF, that's done. So now I can go back into Vault and refresh. And we'll see that once it's refreshed, there is the PDF. And if I go check where it's used, we should see that it's attached. It's an attachment to that drawing. So that is the PDF creation with the with the job processor. Now, moving on to Vault Professional. Vault Professional basically has all the goodness of Vault Basic and Workgroup and more. So you're paying more money, you want to get more for your money. Once again, there are enhancements in user roles and permissions over and above that of Workgroup. And this is because of the extra functionality that comes into Vault Professional. More functionality, the more users who can work in Vault and have different roles that they need to fulfill within Vault. One of the biggest things that was recently included in Vault was the geometric duplicate search. This basically allows you to search for duplicate files within Vault and then have that file replaced with, or should I say, it allows Vault to search for geometric duplicates and then do if you're, let's say, in a design, you're able to find a duplicate according to what's in your design inside of Vault and replace that. It includes items and BOMs, and we'll go through items and BOMs, but basically, in a nutshell, items can group data together for handling towards the end goal of putting it into a ERP system. Vault Professional also has your engineering change orders, where you can have an automated system of controlling change orders for data, as well as multi-site scalability. So if we look here at enhanced user roles and permissions, we have item and ECO-based user roles and permissions that are included because of the item inclusion of items and ECOs, or engineering change orders. We have item editor level 1 and 2. These are just a couple of the examples, and ECO editor level 1 and 2. There's also one for custom object editor level 1 or 2 as well. And custom objects is basically exactly that. You can create your own type of object inside of Vault. It could be a contact card within Vault with a person's details in it. Items. Now, items within Vault basically group together data that from a design. So in the example here on the right-hand side, we have an assembly 1, where we have an item for an assembly 1, and with the associated files portion of the dialog box, we can see that there is the main assembly as well as its drawing. So this item contains the assembly and its drawing. Your item would have at least a 3D model. And if that 3D model has a 2D drawing, the 2D drawing as well. It also has a bill of materials. So there you see a bill of materials tab. You can select that tab and you would then see the bill of materials, or the BOM of that assembly, and all the items that make up that assembly. You can also then go and add in other documents onto this item. I would normally refer to this as non-CAD items, or even items that make up part of the product that you would not draw in Inventor or AutoCAD. So there could be documentation like specifications, maybe a paint spec, an assembly instruction, but you can also add items like packaging, bubble wrap per meter, pallets, packing peanuts. Those sorts of items can be created inside of Vault, so that at the end of the day, your design can have a full bill of materials, which can be pushed through to your ERP system for a full cost output for that item. So this can take into account those non-CAD items, those items you wouldn't draw within your CAD environment. Then with the introduction of items, you'll also get item life cycles. So very much the same way that you would work with your file life cycles, items work with item life cycles. So you can track the state of an item according to its item life cycle. So if we see here in the window there at the bottom, we have a pump assembly, And to the right of that side, it tells us that the lifecycle state is released. So we can see that this item has been released for manufacture. And in the window at the bottom, because the item is released, the related files to that item, so we see that the pump assembly, the actual assembly itself, and then the components that form part of its bill of materials, they've all been locked so that they cannot be edited. So your item is released for manufacturing and the related files are then locked and they cannot be modified. Now, if you're running Vault Professional, you would then basically make the decision, do you want to work with item life cycles or do you work with file life cycles? The whole reason for going Vault Professional would be to get this item master to be able to then integrate with an ERP system like SAP or BOM or SysPro. So you would probably be using items anyway. So you would go with the item life cycles option. And then those securities for those life cycles are handed back down to the parts. You wouldn't run, or to the files. You wouldn't run both side by side. Then with your item life cycles, you will definitely get your item revisions. So as an item is released, it might be revision A. If it needs to be reworked, gone back to work in progress, and released again, you would need to bump that revision. Now, the revision can either manually be updated or it can be bumped up with the ECO. So within Workgroup, you would have manually just changed the life cycle back to work in progress. But with Vault Professional, it can be set up that you need to raise an ECO to be able to move that file back into work in progress. So a file cannot go back from release to work in progress without an ECO. So this adds control over who can change files when. You need to raise that ECO and have that ECO signed off by a committee before it can actually, before item can be moved back into work in progress and its files unlocked for editing. So here's the ECO explanation. It's an you electronically request and track changes to items or files. And you can include all the required items that need to be changed in the ECO. So it keeps track of which files were in the ECO and which ones basically went through that process. All the steps are tracked. We can see here in the organogram on the right-hand side, with that flow process on the right-hand side. We can go from the create stage to an open stage. Currently, this ECO was in the open stage when the screenshot was taken. It can move from open through the various channels. In the best case scenario, it goes to work, review, approved, and closed. But at any point, it could be rejected or cancelled and pushed back to the open stage. Once a file goes through this process, or item goes through that process, it will get bumped up to the next revision. You can also have email notifications set up so that the people involved in this process are emailed updates or notifications when they are required to pay attention to that ECO. One of the biggest things with Vault Pro is also multi-site scalability. So if you have multiple global locations or even multiple local locations, you're able to scale your Vault to those locations. In this instance here, we're looking at multiple global locations. Maybe you've got 3 offices in 3 different countries. You can basically set up a server at each location for speed of access to data. The data itself is replicated to all the servers to stay up to date. So maybe during the evening or at night time when it best suits all 3 locations, that data that has changed is replicated and copied across to all 3 servers or between all 2 or 3 servers. There is also on-demand replication available. If you need to work on the latest file that is not on your server, you can choose to have it downloaded from another server. So the example that we have in the image at the bottom, there are two separate work groups, let's say one in South Africa and one in Australia. And so on the left-hand side, we've got a work group 2, which is has its own server, file server, and application server, and database server. So it on its own has all of the servers required. So any clients connecting to workgroup 2 or site C, they are connecting directly to servers on site. They're not needing to connect across connection to another country. Workgroup 1, which may be head office within one country, has their main site, site A, where there's the database server and the application and file server. So that's where all the data is housed. And that might be, let's say, an office in Johannesburg, where it has clients that connect. And maybe they have an office in Durban, where site B is connected and they only have a application and file server. So they rely on the database from site A. So it's not a full replication there to site B. It will rely on the internet connection or that WAN connection between site A and site B. However, site C is essentially all housed on its own, but connected with a WAN to site A and site B to be able to replicate data. So this would be kind of looking at two different mixes here. Workgroup 2, site C, is located far away from headquarters. It needs its own servers to be able to run Vault quickly and efficiently, where site B is maybe closer to home, closer to the main head office, so it only needs a file server to store large files and replicate large files overnight, rather than trying to access those large files through, let's say, a VPN or connection back to site A. So you get scalability there for various ways of scaling between locations. Okay, so a little bit of demo time here. See, we're nearing the hour mark. Just to have a look, we have Item Master within Vault on the left-hand side. So this would be your Vault Professional Item Master, and you can pick an item within the Item Master and view information related to that. So if I go to the drive shaft, this is just a single part file. So if I go to its bill of materials, we should only see one single part in that bill of materials. If I just go back to Project Explorer, I can go back to that chassis component and use the link here on the right-hand side to link back to its item. So the rolling chassis assembly item is what I'm jumping to now. My connection is going to quickly load up that item. And when that loads, we will be able to see what files make up that item and its bill of materials as well. So let's give it some room here. If I go to the General tab, we'll see specific information about the file that I chose. So the number of the item, the title, description. Here we see the lifecycle state, work in progress, and the associated file. If I go to bill of material, that bill of material then displays all of the items that are related to this assembly. So all these items and how many of each of them. So here we can see 33 each of this MSP 1070 file. We can also do the same where used functions for items. So we can see where this item is used. This item is basically used in the main assembly. The bill of materials is almost like, or basically like that users tab that we saw earlier. We can also see if this item is part of a change order. Currently, there are no change orders linked to this item. And we can also go to a view tab, which is similar to the preview tab for files, where we can then preview that file. So there's your items and change orders. Last thing to go to there. It's busy loading the preview now on the right-hand side for that file. Let's see, there it is. So there's the preview of that, essentially of that item, that file that's linked to that item. Change orders, I can go to the change order list on the left-hand side, and that grid is going to populate, and we can pick a change order. We can see this change order was closed, and I'm able to go through that closed change order and view the records. What were the files related to that, or the items related to that change order? What were the comments at the various stages of that ECO? What files were relating as well? So we have the records. Those records have files within them. Those are the files in those records. There was routing. We can see what routing was used and the current status, which is currently closed. And so you can view your ECO data, your change orders within Vault as well. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. Very last slide, just a comparison, a feature comparison between the two. And as you can see, you go from Vault Basic to Workgroup, you get more functionality. And then from Vault Workgroup to Professional, that adds on a lot more functionality with the geometric searches, bill of material management, multi-site scalability, and so on. Okay, any questions? I see we don't have any questions. So I am going to stop the recording.